In this section, we're going to talk about problem solving. And so you can see that Susan in front of us has a problem. She wants to take a vacation and wants to spend as little amount as possible. And so our options are to go on a Caribbean cruise, go to Orlando, or go to Chicago. Each one of these requires flights, car rentals, and hotels, admission fees. And so Excel is a great tool to figure out which one of these would be the least expensive. And so I will give you a partial solution, but by this point in the course, though, you're supposed to be able to solve some of these problems on your own. And so it will stretch your thinking and reinforce the skills that you've learned before. So problem solving is going to start with a simple problem, and then gradually I'll give you several until you get to the most complex problem. When you reach the end, you will be considered a person that can use Excel to solve real problems in your personal life and in your job as well.
Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to calculate interest on a simple interest payment plan for 4 loans with different interest rates, and then make a graph. So here's the final product that we're going to arrive at the end of this video. And so you'll see that we have a $10,000 loan with 4 different interest rates, and then we have monthly payments at the right column. Let's start up a new spreadsheet, and then we're going to put in the data labels. So the first thing I'm going to do is fill out the column titles for our loan. So the first column is principal, the interest rate, the months that we have to pay over, the total interest paid, the number of dollars that the total loan will be, and then the monthly payments. In the first column, let's put in labels here for loan A, B, C, and D. I'd like to make sure that these column headers are correct, so let's double click on the little line that's between each of these dividers, and that will separate the column to be exactly the right width for the label. So let's zoom in and let's check out what our payments will be. So let's make up a principal number for our loan. Let's say we're buying a car and I'm going to spend $10,000 that I don't have. So I enter in 10,000 and you can see that the numbers don't quite fit now. So let's expand the column a little bit. And if you don't have dollar signs, you can go up to the accounting area and you can change this to a dollar sign if you want. Now the interest rate, if I put in a number here, let's say 9%, and I use the percent sign, it will calculate the number correctly. However, if you don't put in the 9%, you can put in 0.09, which is the decimal equivalent of 9%. And then if you choose the percent sign, it will show it correctly. Now the number of months, let's say I have a 12-month loan, and so I put in a 12. So these 3 columns here are going to be numbers that we enter, and then the last 3 columns are going to be the formulas that help us solve our problem. So let's start with the formula interest paid. So that's a formula where we type in equals. We want to take the principal, which is B2, and I will multiply by C2, which is the rate. So you can either type in equals B2 and use the star key, which is the shift 8, and that's for multiply. And then finally type in C2 and press enter. And that'll tell us that the total amount of interest is $900 over the price of the loan. So then the next column is the number of dollars paid total. So we have to pay back our money. Let's go with equals, and we'll click the 10,000. Then we put in a plus sign because we have to add the number of dollars interests that we're going to pay as well. And so that's 900, and press enter. So the total cost of your car will be $10,900. Now you're going to pay this over the life of the loan. So we're going to take this total amount and divide it by 12. So we'll divide by the number of months that we just agreed to pay. So that's F2 divided by E2, and press enter. So your monthly payment for this car is $908. Now you can adjust this quite easily if you want to change something. So let's click in here and let's say I have a $20,000 loan for my car, and you can see the payment automatically is recalculated. Now you're shopping between different banks and you want to see what the competitive rates are. So let's take our 20,000 and I'm going to select and fill down. So let's see, I'm selecting this whole bracket of looks like 12 different cells. I'm using the control key and D on the keyboard, and that is for fill down. Now I want to calculate on different rates. So one bank here decided to give me an 8% loan, another one is 7, and even 6%. So I shopped around and I found 4 different rates. Now the number of dollars that I pay is equal and the number of months that I pay is equal. Now let's take the last three columns and we're going to fill down. So I'm going to select those three columns and drag from the small dot in the corner, and this will calculate my interest based on the 12-month payment. So let's see here. The interest rate is better for the 6%, and then the total monthly payment is slightly lower. Now I'd like to visually present this, so let's select the total monthly payment and we'll make a bar chart out of it. So let's see, let's go to the Insert tab here, and I'm going to select a chart for bar chart. Let's choose this first one. Now there's my chart, and let's see, I'll zoom out slightly. Let's put in a chart title, and I'm going to call this Monthly Payments for $10,000. Alright, now at the bottom you can see that I have this 1, 2, 3, 4. I would like to compare the interest rates. That's the only thing that changes in here is the 9876. So let's do a right click on the chart here and choose Select Data. In the column here where it says Axis Labels, I'm going to edit this, and it says please give me a range. So I can just simply select from the chart here 7, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then it puts in the correct columns there, C2 to C5, and that is exactly what I'm looking for. Click OK, and then it says here, this is what I'm going to display now, which is 9876%, and click OK. And there you got your chart. My name is Shad Sluter, and my YouTube channel is called Tech Made Simple. I'm a university professor that teaches programming, computer software development, and security, all kinds of technology, including what you just saw here with Microsoft Excel.
Welcome to Excel Problem Solvers. This is a set of examples of how you can use Excel in solving real-world problems. Problems that are too complex to solve with a regular calculator or to solve in your head. So we're going to look at Susan and Tim. Every time we get a new page in this booklet, we're going to see that they have a different task. And so here's what we're going to do for each page. First of all, we'll listen to Tim and Susan and tell us about their problem. We'll build a spreadsheet with proper formulas. Now I'm going to show you a partial solution for each of these solutions. We're going to create a spreadsheet with a little bit of a design, but I'm going to assume that you've already done some Excel work, and so that you can finish this with a little bit of collaboration with your friends and a little bit of thought. And then finally, every one of these solutions will have a graph. It'll be a bar chart that will show a comparison. So let's see what these different problems are. The first problem we're going to look at is a school shopping list. And so Susan has a lot of things to buy, and she has 3 different stores to shop at. Tim also has a shopping list that's slightly different. The second problem we'll face is, should we buy a cat or dog? And so we'll look at all the different costs associated with buying each of those. The next problem that Susan faces is that she wants to take a vacation. And so we're going to give 3 different options, either a Caribbean cruise, Orlando, or Chicago. Tim's going to do the same vacation, but he has a different number of people. The next problem is that they're going to purchase printers. And so there's 3 different kinds of printers to choose from, and the cost of ink for each is different. Number 5 is more complicated yet. We're going to untangle the cell phone bill. Number 6 is where we're going to choose from 3 different cars, a very economical car and a luxury. In this first Excel problem, we're going to go on a shopping trip. And so we have a shopping list. Susan says, I'm Susan. Would you help me pick one of these 3 stores to buy my school supplies? Here's my shopping list. And so to the right of the shopping list, you can see all the items that Susan would like to buy. Her choices are Walmart, Dollar Trap, and Office Depot. Each price is listed below, and then her number of items that she would like to buy are listed on her shopping list. So for instance, 3 ballpoint pens. At Walmart, it's going to cost her 3 times 50 cents, or $1.50. Now this is a large, complicated shopping list with many items, so this is a perfect way to solve a problem using an Excel spreadsheet. Inside the Excel spreadsheet that we're going to create, we need to add a list of all of the items in the shopping list, and then a column for each store. And so pause the video right now and type these in just as you see on the screen. Next, let's go back to the shopping list. Each price listed at each store has to be put into the spreadsheet, and then put them into this column under Walmart. Pause this video until you have the numbers typed in. Now you might say, these look like dollars, so let's make a dollar sign each of them. So in the currency, add a dollar sign. Let's add the prices for Dollar Trap and also for Office Depot. So pause the video until you have all the prices listed for each of the stores. Now I'm going to help you a little bit further with the problem, but not completely. Let's start by looking at Susan's shopping list. For each item, for the ballpoint pen, we know how many she needs, such as 3. And so I copy down the number of items that she needs. Now how would you figure out the amount of money that she would spend on ballpoint pens? Let's put that formula right here. Ballpoint pens. You know that she's going to spend $1.50 if she shops at Walmart. 3 times 50. Here are some hints for the formula. In this square, which is G3, we're going to multiply the quantity times the price. So, enter your formula once you figure that out. After you figure out the first formula, you'll be able to fill down and calculate all the rest of the prices as well. At the very end, let's put in the total, and so you'll know what the total cost is for purchasing supplies at Walmart. Repeat the same process for another column. We're going to figure out the price for the entire shopping list at Dollar Trap, and then we'll figure out the price again at Office Depot. Once you finish, you should have 3 total prices listed down here after you add up all of these numbers. The last thing you'll need to do is put a chart on the graph. And so copy the labels from row 2 down to the bottom, and when you find the totals, like I've mentioned here, you can highlight the entire 2 rows, create your chart, and it will be labeled correctly. Now, for the other fellow, we're going to have to make another chart. So copy everything you get from Susan, and then you could probably move it over to column K or so, and paste all of the information. Just change the shopping list so that Tim's list will be shown instead of Susan's. Then you'll be finished. Good luck. In this video, in Excel Problem Solvers, we're going to look at a problem that Susan and Tim are facing. They want to purchase a dog or a cat. And so let's see what Susan says. She says, "I'm Susan. Would you help me choose a pet? I love both cats and dogs equally, but I would like to spend as little money as possible each year. Compare these expenses in a spreadsheet and show me your answer. Create a graph." First of all, notice that she's talking about a year. And so at the bottom down here when it says hints, it says use a spreadsheet to calculate the total cost of ownership for owning a pet for 1 year. So we'll just assume 1 year is the length of our expenses. Pets at options. Dogs are 50, cats are 90. All expenses include all of the vaccinations, spaying, and neutering. However, there are more expenses than just buying the cat or the dog. First of all, this is a list of what we consider necessary accessories. The cat has 3 items, the dog has 4. So you have to buy this one time. The second box shows the ongoing expenses. A box of cat food, kitty litter, and the small print says buy 2 of each of these for my pet each month. And so we'll double that expense each month. The dog has some expenses too. His dog food is more money, and his dog treats are also an expense. Here's a good pattern for setting up the spreadsheet. You can see that I have 2 boxes, and I colored these boxes so that way you can distinguish that there's a section called initial costs, so these are just one-time costs, and these are monthly costs. Then we have a column for the dog and a column for the cat. When we're done, we're going to have a total of how much it costs to keep the dog for the first year. So we'll be adding up all the numbers above it. What are the initial costs? Well, the purchase price for the dog, we have to buy a collar, a tag, a bowl, a leash. And then the initial total will be the sum of everything above it. The cat will have some of these expenses. I think the cat will have a 0 here because it doesn't need a leash. For the monthly expenses, remember there's going to be food, litter, and treats. So these will be subtotaled, and then we're going to multiply by 2 because we need to have a monthly total. Each one of those items was bought twice a month. For the 1 year costs, we're going to have to take 12 times the monthly total and then add it to the initial. So think through how each of these costs need to be added in to get an accurate price for a dog and an accurate price for a cat. When we're done, we will highlight these 2 lines, create a chart, and so you'll have a bar chart that shows the cost of a dog compared to the cost of a cat. So there's a good outline for you. Remember, this is just a partial solution that I'm offering you. You have to come up with the formulas and use the numbers to get an accurate result. Welcome to the next lesson of Excel Problem Solvers. This is number 3, where we're going to take Susan and Tim and ask them what they want to buy. We'll evaluate this with a spreadsheet and then hopefully come up with a graph. So Susan and Tim are both going on vacation, and they're going to explore either a Caribbean cruise, Orlando, or Chicago. First of all, she says, "I'm Susan. Would you help me pick one of these 3 vacations? My husband and I like all 3 vacation ideas, but we want to spend as little as possible. We will fly, stay 5 nights and 4 days. Tell me which one of these will cost the least." And so we're going to build a spreadsheet to answer that question. Which one of these will cost the least? Let's look at the details of what kind of vacations they are. The Caribbean cruise is the simplest. It's $555 with almost everything included. The only thing it does not include, it says here, is airfare. So we have to buy plane tickets to get to Miami. Orlando has theme parks. And so they're going to spend 4 days and look at each theme park. So for her, it's going to cost twice the price of each ticket. They're not going to rent a car, it says in the small print. They will spend money on a hotel, and they estimate $50 per person on food each day. Lastly, we have Chicago. Chicago is a city of museums, and so they're going to go visit the Natural History, the Museum of Art, the Science Museum, and the Broadcast History Museum. And so each of these prices is per person. In Chicago, they have to rent a car. Their hotel is a little bit more money, and they estimate about $50 per day for food. And this box over here, we show the costs of the airline. So Miami, Orlando, and Chicago are all different costs, and those are per person. Now let's look at how we would build a spreadsheet. First of all, we have a column for each city. So we have Chicago, Orlando, and Miami. At the bottom of the page, we're eventually going to have a total for all of these cities. So we'll find out the answer down here, and then we'll make a graph. I've divided the costs up into per person expenses. So if you have more people in your family, per person expenses will go up. And then hotel expenses, assuming that all people stay in the same room, it will cost the same for 2 people as it will for 4. And so the hotel is more of a fixed cost per night rather than per person. Now, for some of these, we won't have a number. For instance, if we look at Chicago, we will have no money for Disneyland, so we can just put a 0 in there. Also, for like the museum, the Science Museum, we will not have a Science Museum cost in Orlando. Some of these costs will be just 0. It appears that there's something missing. I have hotels and tickets, but there is also car rentals, so you might want to include another car rental expense somewhere down at the bottom and then add that into the subtotal. So calculate all of the subtotals, per person expenses, hotel expenses, car expenses, add them together, compare the 3 cities, and give Susan her answer with a bar graph. Once you have finished with Susan, then you can use her work to copy and paste a new chart, a new bar graph, and you'll have Tim's answers as well. Remember, he has 2 children, so his per person expenses will be higher. Good luck in helping Tim and Susan pick their vacation. Welcome to Excel Problem Solvers. So Susan and Tim both would like to buy a new printer. Susan says, "Would you help me pick one of these 3 printers? I plan to print about 15 pages each day, so that's 5 days per week. I want the total cost to be as low as possible. I expect the printer to last 2 years. You'll see that the Epsilon printer is only $29, and so you might think that is the best price at the beginning. Until you look at the supplies, and you'll see that ink is $40 a cartridge, and it will add up quite a bit. Tim, on the other hand, has a different request. He said, "I'm Tim, would you help me pick one of these 3 printers? I plan to print about 500 pages each day." And so his printer will probably be different than Susan's. Let's look at the fine print. First of all, you'll notice that each cartridge on the Epsilon will only print 200 sheets, while at the other end, the Zero printer will print 11,000 pages for a cartridge. And so the initial price on the printer, even though it's high, may end up being less expensive per page. Here's a suggestion for how to set up your spreadsheet. We'll do columns B, C, and D for each of the printers. We'll put in a line for their initial purchase price, and then we'll put the yellow section for the cost of their print per page. And that's important because even though inkjet cartridges are less than LaserJet cartridges, they don't print nearly as many pages. And then for each of these people, we'll have to compute their expected pages per day. So Susan is only expecting 15 per day. This is the number that she will actually print per year, and so you'll need a formula to calculate that number. Once we know the pages per year, we can estimate how much it will cost per year because we have and then the total printing cost will come here at the bottom. The total printing cost added to the initial purchase cost will give you the actual cost for the 2 years of Epsilon. And so your job is to figure out some of the formulas that would make these numbers make sense. Once you're done, you will highlight the final results and you will create a chart that will show the differences in each of these printers. Similar to the other problems, we're going to have a section for Susan, and then we'll copy the information to the right side and we will compute Tim's numbers. And so you should have 2 charts when you're done and find out what the recommendation is for each of these people. Welcome to the last in the series of Excel problem solvers. On this video, Susan and Tim are asking us to help them purchase a car. Susan says, "Would you help me pick one of these 3 cars? I want to spend as little as possible. I want to drive the car until it has 250,000 miles when I assume it will be nearly worthless. I drive about 30,000 miles every year. Thankfully, I have enough money to save, so I don't have to borrow money and pay interest on a loan that would cost me an extra 40%. Let's see the 3 cars that Susan is considering. First of all, she has in mind the Chevy Spark. It's a small engine that gets good gas mileage. She has to pay $1,500 a year in insurance. The initial cost for taxes is $1,450, and every year she spends $210 for a license. Compare the other cars. They have higher numbers for each of those. So the Ford Mustang is $31,000. The gas mileage is much lower. The insurance and taxes and license are all higher. Her third choice is the Escalade. Certainly a luxury car with a price of $72,000, low gas mileage, high insurance, high taxes, and high license fees. Just how much more will that be than the other cars? We'll find out when we make the bar graph to compare the total cost of ownership for all of these cars. Tim said he would also like to buy one of these 3 cars. He wants to spend as little as possible. He's going to drive the car until it has 250,000. He drives 30,000 miles a year, so everything so far is the same as Susan. However, the difference is he does not have enough money to purchase the car. And so to make things simple, we are just simply going to add 40% of the price of the car to his spreadsheet. So that will include all the interest and bank fees. Now let's look at the spreadsheet to solve this problem. On the left side we have Susan and all of the calculations that we need to come up with a price for which one is going to cost the most. We'll put the cars in column B, C, and D, Spark, Mustang, and Escalade. The yellow section at the top will talk about the initial costs. So this is the price that she pays the day she buys the car. She has to pay the original price plus taxes.
The more complicated question is how much does it cost to own this car every year? And there are three costs that we need to add together. We have insurance, license, and gas. How much are we going to pay for gas? That's a more complicated question than just looking at the price at the pump. We have to know several things. And so we have a blue calculation area from row 12 to 16. First of all, we need to ask the question, how much does she drive? How many miles every year? What is the miles per gallon, or the MPG, for her car? How much is she paying for gas? And then we will know how much she pays every year for gas. Add those three together and we will have total annual costs, insurance plus license plus the gas. Now the question is, how much is this car going to cost over the entire lifetime of the car? Well, first of all, we know how long she wants to drive. She said 250,000 miles, after which we will assume that the car has basically no value left and she can give it away to a friend. To find out how long the car will live, we have to ask how many miles does she plan to drive each year? What is her goal, which is 250,000? And then we can use those two numbers to find out the total lifetime expectancy of the car. Finally, we will arrive at the bottom where we get the calculations for the annual cost of the car times the number of years that we expect the car to live. We add in the initial price of the costs and we have a total lifetime cost of the car. It might surprise you that you'll see the numbers up in the range of where you expect to pay for a house. Down a little further, we will calculate the final answer in row 27 and 28. We will calculate the average cost of a year. So we know how long the car expects to go, how many years it expects to go. We also know how many dollars we have total, and so now we can find out what each year will cost for the Spark, Mustang, and Escalade. Highlight these last three numbers with their labels, create a bar chart, and you will give Susan some good information on how much more it will cost to buy luxury cars. On the right side of the equation, we will have Tim. Tim is going to be calculating almost the same values, except Tim doesn't have any money saved. And so the initial cost of his car is going to be 40% higher than what Susan paid. And so that 40% includes all the interest and bank fees. So everything else should be the same. He's driving the same number of miles and he expects to go 250,000 before the end of life. And so when you're finished with Tim, you'll have a similar graph, but you might find his expenses quite a bit higher than Susan because he doesn't have enough money to pay for the car in cash.
Congratulations, you've made it to the end of the course. If you've survived this long, you have gone from the beginning to an expert person in Excel. Now, I appreciate you spending the time. And if you're interested in these kind of things, check out my channel on YouTube. My name is Shad Sluter. I'm a professor at Grand Canyon University in Phoenix, Arizona. I not only teach with Excel, but I teach programming so you can learn how to build software, websites, and mobile applications. So thanks for joining me, and best of luck with what you've learned here.